Erica, thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're here too, and especially just for those that are listening to hear from you because you all have created something pretty incredible, Attract That Advisor. We're going to get into what you all do. But before we do, I'd love to just hear a little bit kind of about your background, how you came to Attract That Advisor, and we'll get a little bit more into kind of what you all do for firms.
Yeah. Uh, it's such a random story, and I love it because random stories are the best. But I never intended to start a company. Ever in a million years thought I'd be what it is today. But I worked for a financial advisor, and I was an English major. I studied rhetoric and composition in college, so it was more about creating story,
Yeah.
and like appealing to ethos and logic to get people to like your story, which is crazy how we've come full circle
Oh,
now.
sorry,
It's
I was
like,
just gonna say, I love
yeah,
it. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
wild.
it's wild. And so I worked for a financial advisor and I was doing marketing for them. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, it'll be so fun to write copy or whatever it is. And very quickly I
Right.
realized in the industry, the marketing role is much more of kind of like checking boxes and doing the things that make the most sense, like running the mailers for dinner seminars and all those things. And um, one time, the advisor came home from one of those huge seminars that they all go to all the time, and they were like, so and so over in Ohio isn't doing dinner seminars, and we don't want to do them ever again. And I'm sitting here as their marketing director, like, I think this is a terrible idea, and I have no data to back this up.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was failing in my role, but I also had this hunch that it was a bad idea. So I said, hey, look, I'm doing your company books. I'm looking at all the leads coming in. Give me 6 months. Let me just like run and see everything that's happened in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I sat them down 6 months later, and they loved it, and I loved it, and I fell in love with data tracking and was just like, oh
Mm.
my gosh, this is it. I love doing this for them. Did it for several years. My husband ended up getting a job elsewhere. And so we moved. I was devastated, didn't think I would ever leave. We moved to Arizona and they called me
Okay.
within 6 weeks of me being here and they said, look, no one in the industry is doing data tracking and analytics. Would you just like keep helping us on the side? And I said, you know what? You're right. I'm going to just start a company and you
The
guys can be my
sparks.
first clients. I know.
Yes.
And that was 2015. That was 10 years ago. And so that was how I like randomly, I just was doing it for someone for a long time and providing value to them. And then I left and it apparently was a huge need. So we have several hundred clients around the nation now, and it's just really blown up in the last decade. So it's been a wild, wild ride.
I'm excited to get more into it because you're right. I mean, I don't, you guys are the ones that are doing it in the industry, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
data can have so much noise. People track it all different ways, right? Like garbage in, garbage out. So tell us what you do. I mean, how do you guys operationalize this, right? Like if a
Yeah.
firm comes
How
to
do we over
you
the
and they're like,
chaos?
where do you even start? Because I feel like it can be a hot mess, honestly, right? Like sometimes, especially if
Hmm.
you have rapid growth, M&A, maybe you're just getting started, you don't even know where to go. There's so many different ways to slice it up. So tell us a little bit more about what you all do for advisors or firms or what have you.
Hmm. So we used to do that. I mean, we used to track anything and everything anyone wanted.
Mm,
Very quickly, we realized one, it's different for every office because everyone thinks they need something different.
yep,
And two, a lot of it wasn't making sense or helpful. And that was when I really went into one, I need to start saying no, or at least pushing back and
yep.
saying, I see what you're asking, right? Like mathematically, I see what you're wanting us to get, but tell me how that's helping you, or tell me why that's helpful. And 90% of the time, they're like, well, because so and so looks at it and he's my friend. And like, but you're not even doing those marketing funnels, or
Yep.
they're in growth mode and you're not. And so it forced me to really learn what is important, what is not, and then I have to teach the advisors, and I don't blame them. There are thousands of points they can look at, and quite frankly, there's thousands of stuff on the trackers that we
Yes.
create, but our job at TTA, like our overall job, is to guide them and to
Yes.
say, okay, these 15 don't matter at all. Don't look at them. They might
Yep.
matter in a year,
Yep.
but these ones matter right now because it is confusing.
Hmm.
And I think the only way that people are going to learn is by learning, right? Like by listening to what we're saying and reading books on it. And a lot of them just feel lost in the weeds, and I hate that for them. So I mean, that's really why we exist at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh, it's so fair. And I really respect and appreciate that approach because we always tell, firms that we work with, like, it's very big brother. Like you can get more data than you would ever want.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it feels really good to just be like, well, what is my follower, count going up or what have you? But there's a lot of vanity metrics out there. And as you said, if they don't match the business goals, then like why track them? So what do you when a new client comes on for you all, do you go through a discovery process? How do you help to kind of really identify what those key metrics are for where they are in their stage of growth?
So when we initially onboard them, it's pretty templated, like the actual trackers that we are building for
Yeah.
them to come in. But yes, I'm asking, I mean, the first call I ever do with anyone is what are the roadblocks right now, right? Like, is it actual tracking or is it understanding them?
Yep.
I mean, there's lots of different reasons why people need help with data and analytics. So one, we do start there, but two, almost all of them have some growth goal in mind. And so that's good for us to know. It's like that analogy. I think it's like, there's three options and you have to like choose two sort of a
Yes.
deal.
Yes.
So when we sit there and someone's like, I want to have a really high ROI, and I'm like, awesome. That means you can't be trying out four different marketing funnels this year. Like,
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
you know that? We can't be doing that.
Yep.
Or we want to grow and we want to scale. And I'm like, that's fantastic. That means your ROI is going to drop this year. So we
Yep.
have to know that like we pull on this thread and it's going to affect this thing over here. It's going to ring this bell. So a lot of it, again, is that education piece. But I like to know, like, what is your goal? Where are you trying to go? So that when you call me and you're upset with the low ROI, I can refer back to it and say, but you're in growth mode. Like,
Yep.
that's okay. This
Yep.
is not an issue. You shouldn't be afraid of it. And that's also where it's freedom for people. They need the
Mhm.
freedom. They need the freedom for me to say, okay, we're going to put the ROI in a box for a minute and we're going to close the lid. And I
Yep.
don't need you to look at that until these three new marketing funnels are really solid and
Yep.
really good. And we've figured them out. And then we can open up the ROI box and pay
Yes.
attention to it.
That's so fair. And understanding, are we nurturing current
Hmm.
prospects or is it totally cold? What does that look like from the sales cycle? So one of the challenges that we see is like we can give you all the kind of the marketing data, right? But then it goes into this like CRM black box. It's like what happens there, right? And you don't know like what was the conversion, which advisor is closing at what rates, like what like it becomes very yeah, black box.
Hmm.
So where do you have like kind of a maybe share a little bit more with those that are listening like you've got all these sort of inputs and then do you go as far as like the CRM outputs and how are you tracking that and how are you kind of connecting the two together?
Okay, so it's twofold. Good question. There's several ways to do it. So people who don't have, it all depends on if you have a good process.
There.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
So some of you advisors, you're still figuring things out and there isn't a written process. And so the
Mhm.
CRM is not clean,
Mhm.
the data
Yep.
desert, right? Like the black box. And so we have to immediately start with, hey, you actually have to do like some manual entry into a specific tracker.
Yep.
Now, as they grow and as they flourish and they bloom and we have more people, we can get a system in place. It goes into the CRM. How we are exporting that is literally like integrations that we're building.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we just rolled out our Red Tail integration. We're rolling out Wealthbox this year.
Yep.
But the caveat is you have to do things the same way every single time
Yep.
in the same same way for every single lead, and most
Yeah.
people are not doing that. So it's we get the data in lots of different ways. One, it could be manual entry. Two, it's literally getting pulled, like we map their red tail system or we map their wealth box system and it gets pulled into our database.
Mhm.
That's kind of how we're getting the information.
Yep.
The second part is the way that our platform works is that it's scrubbing and auditing the data. So very, very quickly stuff is turning green where it's missing information. And so
Yep.
people can see, oh my gosh, our process is not as sleek or as honed in as we thought it was because we're
Yep.
missing all this information. And all of us thought so and so was doing it on step two.
Yep.
Um, so it's another beautiful part about pulling stuff out of the data desert and saying, "Ooh, like you got 90% of it, but there's like 10% that is so important for us to
Yeah.
get whatever metric it is." So it's kind of twofold. It's we can do integrations, you can do manual entry, but then we're actually needing to scrub it and audit
Okay.
it to make sure
Okay.
it's clean.
So then I want to say, let's like wave the magic wand, right? And we get to a place where we go, we've got it, we've got, you know, good data coming in, good data coming out. is that a place where you can actually start what happens when you get to that point? And how do you help to map next steps when you've got kind of a clean input and output on both sides of
Hmm. That's the most beautiful part because there's
that?
so much you can do from there. Like there's
Yes.
so much that they can do. One, they can measure. Like we can just measure things. We can measure lots of different things against one another. And you mentioned it this earlier, and I've touched on it too. ROI is not the leading thing that we all need to be looking at. Now we can see our ROI,
Right.
but then because we have all these other pieces, it tells like the whole story. And that's what I'm about is you got to get the entire picture.
Mhm.
I was reading a book the other day and they were talking about, I forgot what the book is called. I wish I could remember, but it starts with this like tiny, tiny picture of a ship. And then the next page, it like goes out and it shows like the ship is just part of a book. And then the next page is, just, this person reading a book about a ship and it goes out and out and out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what happens when you get all the data, right? Like when it's clean and it's good, we
Mhm.
have like this full picture of every single
See
aspect
it.
of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then they can make really wise decisions. They can see, okay, this is what it's costing us per client. If we know that and we know our close rate and we know our average case size, we can also backtrack and say we need X amount of appointments for the year. I mean,
Oh,
there's so much we can do for planning, for measuring, for coaching. That's when the fun really starts. And I know that was
yeah.
super vague. And I don't know if you want me to get more into the weeds
No,
on
it,
that,
it
but
makes
the
sense.
sky's the limit.
It kind of, well, I mean, when you're talking, it made me think of like a puzzle piece, right? Like you get all the
Hmm.
together and then you can see the finished piece of it, right? So you can better see the bigger picture. And on our end, I think ROI is like a really easy metric. It's like who doesn't want ROI, right?
Right.
But you're right in that it's connected to so many other components of that, and to really understand what ROI means as a metric, you've got to be able to get the bigger picture so you can better, align your efforts. It's so much easier said
Hmm.
than done. So,
Hmm. Oh, and in our
um,
industry with financial advisors, it's such a long burn. So, like, by the time we see the ROI, we're 3 or 4 months down the road.
yep,
Like, if there's problems, they've happened a long time ago. So it just
yep,
takes a really long time to fix it.
yeah,
Um, and again, all those other things are just a little bit more telling of what's happening
right,
in real time
yep.
versus ROI is just an old metric, basically. It took a long time to get there.
Long sales cycles, or anyone that's listening knows, right? Are they're based off key trigger points or what have you, always hear about. And it's buying that mind share, right, over time and
Mm-hmm.
connect the dots to tell the story. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, super interesting. So, once you've got that decision making, do you see that firms are making more changes on the marketing side that are kind of impacting decision making? Are they more kind of the operations internal side? Like, we need to do, more sales training, or we need to tighten our operations, or is it more about marketing shifts, or does it go somewhere else that I haven't mentioned? I'd just be curious if you see any trends in that direction or any kind of ahas for folks that are listening.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And it depends on the story, right? I mean, it depends on what all the data is doing. So we have benchmarks, we have a benchmarking guide. What should a first appointment cost? Okay, so the benchmark is about $1,000. And this is for people who are more in like dinner seminars,
Yep.
bigger offices who are doing TV, radio. I mean, some costs, some big, heavy price tag items. Um, it should be about $1,000 per set appointment. But if it's more than that, then we have a conversion problem, right? So then we need to go back and look at marketing and like the leads
Yep.
and the call to action and our conversion rates from
Yep.
leads to setting a meeting. So that's if we have a high set first number, that's what we start looking at.
Yep.
If it's in the sales process, because we're measuring that as well, stick rates, conversion to a second meeting, stick rates for a second meeting, close
Mhm.
rates,
Yep.
that's usually a process problem. Um, Occasionally, when we look at all the data, you could have, let's say, 90% of your leads coming from all the different funnels are functioning a certain way in the sales cycle, but there's one
Mhm.
specifically from radio or digital or whatever it is that doesn't perform like all the others.
Yep.
That's a leading indicator of like, okay, why are the radio people different? Right. Like I had a coaching call years ago with a client, and that's exactly what was happening. All of
Yep.
their leads were flawless, hitting benchmark everywhere, but the radio leads weren't moving to a second meeting. None of them wanted to move.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured out it's because they've only heard them on the radio. They have all these assumptions of
Yeah.
who these people are, and they come in for a first meeting. The rest of the people who were coming in were from dinner seminars. So they had sat
Mm-hmm.
for an hour listening to the
Yep.
spiel,
Middle of the
meeting them in
funnel.
person. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they built trust, and radio was not doing that.
Yep.
So we changed their process. They ended up having an hour and a half meeting for radio leads only. The dinner seminar people were fine. We didn't need to
Yep.
touch that.
Yep.
That's the power that I've found is some people want to change the whole process when we actually don't. Like we don't need to change the whole process. We need to change like one little spot for a certain type of people in the
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Um, or it's also for advisor coaching, right? We get a newer advisor in, we think they're following our process, and we break it out in our reports by advisor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you've got one advisor who people aren't sticking for a second meeting for them.
Yep.
Did they not build enough trust in the first meeting? Was it scheduled too far out? There's a lot of reasons why.
Yep.
But when you can delineate it and pull different things out, it becomes very clear where the actual problem is. So I'd say it's both. It's process,
Love that.
it's the demographic of people in the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
It's marketing on, are we having the right call to action here?
Right.
And even just the correct marketing, like just for who we are and how we are as a
Yes.
culture and a company. Are we doing the right marketing funnels that
Yep.
really fit with us?
Yep. I so appreciate, like I said, the way that you all break it down because it's not like this cookie cutter off the shelf kind of solution, right? I mean, you can have that to a certain degree to be able to pull in information, but it's really figuring it's like if you were going to train for a marathon, right? Like everyone's body's different, every climate's
Hmm.
different, all these things, right? And being able to tweak and make changes can make a really big difference for the end outcome too.
Yep. Yep. That's a good analogy.
I feel like we talk for a really long time. I want to kind of round it out here. Anything you want to share about kind of what's next for Track That Advisor, as folks look ahead, or any resources you think would be helpful?
Yeah. There's a lot ahead. 2025 is a crazy year. Like I said before, it's our 10-year anniversary, and we kind of are
Wow.
just like going at it with a bang. So, we have a very cool educational library that's going to be launched early this spring, so very
Oh,
soon. Inside of it, we have Ask EP, which is like an AI bot of me. So people
ooh,
can
very
ask it
cool.
any questions about benchmarks or national studies or, what's the normal, the stick rate last year, and they can just type it in and ask me, and I'm there to answer those questions, which is a
Oh,
super cool resource.
that's
So
awesome. Yeah.
we're really excited for that to come out. That's a new and up and coming thing. In many years ago, I saw the direction that Salesforce was heading, specifically for financial advisors. And so we have built over the last 5 years, we've been in partnership with another company, and we have built kind of like a Track That Advisor Salesforce platform. So that's coming out this year.
Wow.
Um, the biggest
Nice.
issue we saw with advisors is they go to build their own Salesforce, and
Hmm.
they don't know how to build it. They don't know the foundation. They don't know how to pull
Yes.
reports. They've put fields in wrong. So this has been completely built with like Track That Advisor structure and reporting inside of it. So
Awesome.
that's getting launched this summer. So that's really fun. We
Wow.
have an online data storytelling course that's coming out. So for people to go on and be like, how do I read data, right? You might get data from somewhere if you have it in Wealthbox and you don't need our trackers, but you
Yep.
don't really understand what to do with it. It's a 12-week course that people can just get and take it online and really use data to help them make business decisions. And then the last one is our podcast. Our podcast came out this year. It's coming out. We're in the middle of doing a bunch of recordings, but that is Molly. That's our CEO's like dream right there coming to fruition. So we're pumped
Love
about
it.
that. It'll be fun. We're interviewing industry leaders, just on metrics and analytics and how they're growing from using the numbers in their practice. So nothing really exists like that. So that's been really fun for us to dabble in. So yes, lots of new things happening this
I
year.
love it. I know you're not kidding. This is
Uh,
a big year for you all. And also just for those
yeah,
that are listening, I mean, so many incredible resources that you're rolling out. So I love that Salesforce. I don't know if kind of the right word to call it, but the Salesforce tool or templating or what have you.
yeah,
And then the AI bot. Wow. So all these things to look forward to too.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's fun. We're
um,
pumped. It'll be
yeah,
wild,
we'll
wild
make sure
ride.
to link where we can, and this
Yeah.
and what have you. But Oh my goodness. Well, Erica, thank you so much for being on today, sharing a little bit more about Track That Advisor, how you all have come to be, evolved, just all the support that you give to firms. And I think also just helping, individuals and leaders kind of really identify what is important because it's very
Mm,
check subject, right? And
hmm
help them to adjust course as they move forward because we know that, there's no two businesses that are exactly the same for where they're at, regardless of AUM or employee size or what have you, whatever metric you want to check. So appreciate the work that you
So
guys do.
true. It's so true. And I agree with you. Yes. No one's the same. Just kind of start where you can start and then you go from there. But thanks for having me. I love being here.
Ah, absolutely. And we'll make sure to include links below too to the numerous resources and what have you. So thanks again, Erica.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks.